how to disrupt an industry. So to get started, I would love for you guys, I mean, we have time, so this is going to be fun. I'd love for you to introduce yourself, Lana, and talk about who you are, but also who you're here and your own journey into building your brand.
Well, it's really great to be here, Kendra. Thank you so much. And so I'm Lana Kerr. I am the CEO and founder of Lumisque, which is the home of CO2 Lift, which is the carboxy for the face, body, and the vagina. And I'll just tell a little bit about what carboxy is, so people understand. So CO2 Lift utilizes the carbon dioxide to regenerate the tissue. And as I said, we do this for the face and the body and the vagina. But my background is in accounting and finance. And then I was an auditor, moved into nutrition, went back to school, studied nutrition, opened weight loss clinics for the last 24 years. And then in 2016, founded CO2 Lumisque, where we looked at another way to bring CO2 or carboxy therapy to the masses.
And it's interesting because you talk about your career in pivoting, and I want to get into that as we get into the panel when we think about disruption. And so, Kim, right? I say Kim. We should have talked about it instead. I should have said Kim. Can I call you Kim or Kimberly? Kimberly's better. We are. You also have a fascinating brand that I can't wait for us to dive into, but your own journey. You are a 3-time best-selling author. You've written 6 books. You have your podcast. So tell us a little bit about you, Solluna, and your journey.
Well, it's great to be here with everybody. I know it's a little bit loud, but it's good for our attention focus to stay here together. So thank you so much. I have a brand called Solluna. That's a holistic brand. Solluna means sun and moon. So it's really about a lifestyle, everything from food, body, emotional well-being, and spiritual growth. And I have a podcast. I absolutely love having conversations with amazing people. It's called the Feel Good Podcast. I am a serial book writer. I'm working on books 7 and 8 right now. And it really has been this journey of really sharing what has helped me and what's worked for me out in the collective. I'm a mom of 2. And actually, my oldest son, Emerson, who's 6, is here right now for the first time, I think. It's a big moment as a working mom to have your children here. So we said, okay, little baby's home sleeping, but Emerson is here. So it's a journey. I was backpacking for 3 years. We'll get into it more later, but it's really been this journey of really staying connected to what makes us feel really good, what makes us feel connected, and really evolving that over the past 15 years.
Well, and I'm so glad that you also shared about your son, because we'll get into this notion of balance. And actually, when we think about moms and families and everything that we're doing, we're also running businesses. And so there's this notion of, I want to focus everything on my business, but then I also have a family, I also have other visions. So even as we start to talk about disruption, how have you created this interesting balance as a founder, as a human, and how has that kind of impacted your work?
Well, it's very difficult to do. I think it's something that you have to almost daily wake up and you want to make sure that you're putting first things first. And definitely the reason I'm doing all of this is really for my family. So once you take care of your spiritual life, your connection with God, you connect with your children, my spouse who also works with me, then of course I have my responsibility for my CO2 family. And then of course I have to make time for working out, for taking care of my own skin, eating right, drinking water, all those things. So it's definitely a balancing act. And my kids are older. I have a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old, and so they're not interested in being here with me anymore. They have their own life. But definitely it's a balancing act, but it's possible, and I'm excited of where we are today.
And I think that when you have to balance things, it actually makes you a better founder, because no one is just doing one thing. We all have multiple things to do. And so even when you think about it, I love how you mentioned spirituality, because Kimberly, for you, when you think about Solluna and the balance, it's an entire system of wellness that also helps lead to balance. So share a little bit of that.
And sometimes I feel like I hear this word a lot, balance. And I feel like balance is almost a little bit stressful. When I think of balance, it's like on the tightrope. So what I like to think more of is flow. Because as dynamic, complex beings, whole beings, our energy shifts through the day with the natural circadian rhythms of nature and the seasons. So when we're in flow, it means we're taking a non-linear approach to our work, to our to-do list, to what we're creating. So when I'm present with my children, I'm really there. And then sometimes I'm really feeling like it's coming down with creativity and writing. So I allow enough of my schedule to flow that way. And sometimes I have to do a podcast. So it's like instead of measuring in my head, or like a very linear approach to diet and food, and as a nutritionist, I never looked at it that way either. It's being in tune with your energy. I think, and then you move through the day, you're always giving your best stuff, no matter what it's doing. You're really present with your kids, you're present with your business, versus this, okay, let me go down the list. And then everything's sort of half-assed, and it's not that great. And you have to redo things anyway. So it's really just being in tune with that energy, and this pulse inside of you, and pivoting is a big skill.
Well, pivoting and flow are crucial to everything. And I think it's interesting that our panel is how to disrupt an industry, because those are truly the fundamental tenets of disruption. So when you think about each of your brands, what does disruption actually look like for you?
So when I think of disruption, I think of something that was available for only a few, having it available for the masses. And that would go in line with even with carbon therapy. It's a very old therapy. It's really the fastest way to regenerate your skin. It was only available for people who go to a doctor. You go to a doctor's office, they put a needle in your arm or your skin or your vagina, and they basically treat the skin. But it's only available, it's painful and it's costly. But now to have a gel that's available for everyone, that's one way. But another way that I'm thinking about it is actually changing the way people or women think about skincare. When we think about skincare, we think about just our face and our neck. I want to change it where people think about skincare as how are we helping our intimate skin? Because it's, when you are stressed, they think, well, put on a face mask. But what about a core of a woman, our intimate skin, and that changes, and we talk about it as we continue our discussion, but as we get older, things change. We can measure our face. We look at our face every day, we see pictures, and we can say, oh, I looked better this time. But how do we measure our feelings? Because the truth of the matter is that as we get older, that tissue changes, and it does affect our quality of life. But so how do we get women to think about that and know that there's a solution? So that's how I think about disruption, and that's what we're trying to do.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about disruption in terms of skin, because there's the element of face that we see, and then there's the element of places that we don't see and that we don't talk about. But Kimberly, is it all interconnected? Because when you think about your four cornerstones that I want you to talk through, there is this connected inside, outside, and how it impacts all parts of your skin that we talk about.
So when I think about disruption, the way I think about it is expansion. Okay, so energy, and we're all creative beings, dynamic beings. So energy is going to shift, it's going to move, and it's going to grow. So disruption to me is staying so connected to the needs of the community and your clients and your customers. So naturally you come into this category because you're hearing that tools are needed, or this is a way I can serve the community. So it's going past boundaries, limitations, like, oh, we're just a food company, oh, no, we're just a beauty company. It's not, right? We're here to serve each other. And then your businesses lead to personal purpose. We're not just doing something soulless. We're not trying to disrupt, to be a disruptor, which is sort of contrived to think we're doing it because it's servicing a real need. So we talk about the cornerstones, maybe the next question, but it's really seeing win-win. How is this good for my brand, and how is it good for who I'm serving? When we look at it this way, wow, all these new creative ideas come, and they just flow, and they never stop, because we're really staying connected to intuition and heart. And again, not just, oh, this is good for the bottom line. We're not bean counters.
And it all fits, right? Because whenever we have that mindset, And I want to talk through your four cornerstones too, because I think that that's, as you think about it and as you approach it, the cornerstones are the natural being of you, but then flowing into Solluna.
Yeah, so part of my story is that when I graduated from college, and all my friends were getting fancy jobs, we went to Georgetown, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. So I saved money and I went backpacking. And I was living on my backpack for literally 3 years. And mostly I was in Asia and Africa. And you know when people think that you're so connected in your heart to your journey, people think you're crazy. But I went on this journey and it blew my mind open as far as self-care, beauty, health, energy, anything you can think about. So I came back completely broke to New York City, walking around in flip-flops, couldn't even afford shoes. And I was going back to learn about nutrition. I went to nutrition school, I was teaching yoga, and I just started a free blog. So it's like all this inspiration had to, when I say about expanding energy, it had to find a place to go. So I just started blogging about it. And then suddenly, like my students were sharing it, and then my first celebrity found me, not trying to get into that world, and then the book deals came and everything. And all I was doing was authentically sharing my lifestyle, which again, I had learned so much on the road. The cornerstones are food, we all need to eat every day. Body, having this embodied experience. How am I supposed to exercise? What supplements am I supposed to take? How am I supposed to take care of this thing where my spirit is walking around? And then emotional well-being. Because so much drama and relationships and feeling stress, as we know, because having bodies. It's a big part of wellness and then spiritual growth. Like Lana was saying, we have to be in touch with your true self. And that deep sense of purpose and uniqueness comes out in our business. It comes out in our communication. It comes out in confidence. It comes out in just knowing what we can do to serve this product this way instead of being in our heads. So it's really daily lifestyle practices, small daily steps, morning meditation, drinking hot water with lemon. All these things I like to teach in the brand that add up into really big results where we feel so aligned. We feel our purpose, we feel our voice, we feel the vitality in our body. Like, oh wow, this is what life can be like. And now I do feel really creative. I do feel inspired. So it is important as founders, and even though we think all these things are compartmentalized, they are not. What we're eating for breakfast is going to affect how our skin looks. It's going to affect how clear we are in our meeting, and everything is interconnected.
Well, and there's so many pieces, like we continue this thing of interconnectivity, but you also mentioned vitality, which I think is really interesting when we think about aging. And I think, Lana, you've been very centered, as you pivoted your career and started thinking about how am I healthy? It's beyond just weight loss. It's an entire movement, and we're all going to age. So how do we do that with our best vitality? And so talk about, you've created something so unique and luminous, and talk a little bit about that innovation in terms of aging and vitality, and what makes it so disruptive. It's like hard.
So when we think of carbon dioxide, in fact, I was at the event last night. I was talking with someone else who was attending, and when I talked to her about CO2, people think, is that good for you? People will have that reaction. Is that good for you? Well, CO2 is a very natural way that you can get it into your body for it to trigger a series of events that's going to quickly heal your skin. So what happens is CO2 goes into the body now says, okay, going to rush oxygen-rich blood to that area, and then it's going to help to start regenerating. So I always tell people that if you put a CO2 gel carboxy on top of a non-healing diabetic ulcer, it will close it in as little as 8 days. I'm saying that to say how quickly this happens. So to go back to it, we talk about aging, we all want to age. Obviously, age in the sense we get more experience, we get more wisdom. We just don't want to look old, right? We don't want to have wrinkled skin and that it doesn't look healthy. So how can we do it? One of my favorite sayings is you don't get old, you dry up. You think of this grape and you think of a raisin. What's the difference with a grape and a raisin? A raisin is just a dehydrated grape. We lose the ability to hold water. That happens to our skin. From the time we're 25, we start to shrivel up. Not only the skin in our face, but the skin down there. And so if we can find a way to increase the hydration, so that is what carboxy therapy does. when we put it on our face or wherever part of our body, we have done clinical studies. It's improves hydration by over 117%. So think about, if you can keep your skin full of water, you look healthy. But I think for me, what is important, Kendra, is the fact that we need to talk about the skin donor, because that, for me as a woman, is about quality of life. It's about our relationships. It's about the connection to ourselves. And it's just something that as we get older, because things change and nobody's talking about it, women don't get as much enjoyment. And so it's like, it's something to do. You know, but you talk about glowing and all of that. We need to, if we can fix that, then we can understand that if we involve and engage in that, and it's pleasurable and enjoyable, our energy will flow, that our creative energy will flow because of it. So, I don't know if I said that. I said a lot to say, but you understand. So that's kind of what the message that we want to help our customers with. That all of us, you know, everyone who has worked with Sage, mostly women, we're using it for our face and for our vagina and benefiting. And we want everyone to see how they can improve their lives that way.
Well, and I think there's two pieces of this that we'll get into. It's the piece of people also have to understand that it's still interconnected, and so even when you talk about the pleasure, like if you don't have that pleasure, then it's also hard for you to even show up for yourself, for your partner. And so it's really interesting how an ingredient can be so dynamic that we don't think about it. So Kimberly, alongside of the carbon dioxide, you also have identified ingredients that are powerful not only in their purpose, but also in how they create the mind, the body, and the spirit, so that all of your customers and clients can have that interconnectivity.
So there's one ingredient I thought would be interesting to highlight. It's called ASC2P, and it's stable vitamin C. So how this fits into the lifestyle, and I've always taught from the beginning, before I started selling products, was this simple practice I shared with you guys, which is drinking hot water with lemon. And when you think about what a lemon is, you can hold it, it's physical. It's like, guys, we can do this. It's inexpensive, it's easy to source. Go to Trader Joe's, spend $5 on a bag of lemons, and you're doing something amazing for yourself. It's basically sun energy that you can hold. So in the morning, when you drink hot water with lemon, which is an Ayurvedic practice, the hot water is going and it's really nourishing your digestion. And then the enzymes in the lemon are preparing your liver tissue, and the vitamin C is helping to brighten. So it's connecting people to this ingredient of vitamin C as a practice. So I'm teaching this. I'm not trying to profit from it. We're not owning all the lemons, but it's teaching people this is important. It becomes part of their daily life. So then it starts to expand into a stable form of vitamin C, which we found called ASC2P. And we know when we put it in skincare products, it's stable. And then we put it into a supplement. There's research that shows clinically it helps to stop the telomeres from fraying when you combine it with nasal oxygen. So it's in one of our supplements called Detoxing. So because we've developed this trust with our customers and with the community, it's saying, guys, I'm teaching you this to help you. Like, this is vitamin C in lemons, and this other form of vitamin C, which is lab derived. It's not exactly natural, but it's not toxic and it's beneficial for you. So in terms of disruption, we're able to cross into these categories and get past just strictly natural into beneficial, right? Because that's how everything expanded. So teaching, here's vitamin C here, but here's vitamin C in all these forms, and people connect to it because they get that everyday experience. I think it's an important way to educate people and teach people, hey, there's a real why behind why we're doing these ingredients. It's not just marketing, but there's a real reason.
Well, and I love the analogy of the lemon, because I am someone who drinks hot water with lemon every day, all day, at the restaurant, and even having drinks. But there's something really interesting with
That's why you have great skin.
let it go. There's something interesting when we talk about education and truth, because there is so much out there. We're trying to also understand, even with vitamin C, like the shelf-stable nature of it. And so when we think about education, I think, Kimberly, you have the benefit of having the podcast. You have so much information on your site, but consumers still need that path to education. How are you navigating and educating consumers? Because that's still a form of disruption.
Yeah, it's really interesting for me. I love to read. All I do is read books. My husband husband's wandering over there, but he'll watch screens next to me in bed while I read books. I love to write. I love the long books. And in this day and age, people aren't sitting around reading all day. I feel like I'm an anomaly. I'm like the only one with a library.
Like I do go to the public library.
Right? So it's like, how do we take all this stuff we want to say into these bite-sized chunks? And it really is taking thoughts and showing, for me the big word is integration. Right? It's like, how do we integrate this? How do I do this? How do I do this having a family? How do I do this when, you know, like Lana was saying, we need to work out and eat well and all these different things. So for me, the education is showing people this is everyday life. I love to post stuff on our site, in our newsletter, on social media, without makeup, in my messy life as a founder, being like, this is when I take my probiotics and my feet are covered in baby Q. And I'm kind of getting to the warning, but this is real life. So it's tearing down this veil of like, here's us and here's the consumer, and everything's so polished, I think. I think in this day and age, realness, accessibility, integration, and practicality are really important concepts.
Well, and it's interesting because we talk a lot about marketing, we talk a lot about CAC, and everyone is trying to figure out the holy grail of reducing your CAC, have it in my marketing strategy. And so much of it is the authenticity of content, the short-form content, the nugget-sized content that people can pick up and feel like they're connected to your brands. And I think, Lana, it's really interesting because you are dealing with something that is advanced technology. Even if it is available in your home, how are you navigating, educating, and we're also talking about vaginas and we're talking about skin. So talk about education for you in marketing.
It's been very challenging, I have to say, especially because I remember maybe 2 years ago, it was October Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I was on Today in Texas, and we were talking about, bad hormone health. We had one of our physicians on, and, she told us we couldn't say the word vagina. So how do we talk about this product or vaginal health without saying the word vagina? So I'm just setting the stage how challenging it is. People don't want to talk about it. Women don't want to talk about it. I find that, even having, conversations with one-on-one over there, if you go down there, they say, I'm good. We just have this, we're just brought up that way to think that we don't need to talk about that. If something is not going the way that we want, it's a reflection on our own being, as opposed to thinking that there's a solution that is just a natural thing that we can correct. So education has been a challenge because of just talking about the subject, people aren't comfortable. So I do class, I'm invited to, a couple podcasts a month, so hopefully that reaches people through our Instagram, through, when people have me on interviewing, we talk about it. I did write a book, it's on Amazon, on the secret to the big O. People, just to see that, there is, as we get older, we can still have as many orgasms as we did when we were younger. So the talking to as many women, and I think just from yesterday's information, I definitely need to get better at being more, even with the just raw videos on subjects, to help people understand that, yes, ladies, we can talk about this. This is something very normal, and we can get help to keep that area, and regardless of the age, because if we look at women just having babies. I remember when I had my children, I had some issues in my marriage, and if I knew about this, it would have changed it, because when you have children, the trauma that goes on there, you don't feel like just connecting with your partner that way. So if we had something, conversation that says, listen, this is very normal, and guess what? You can do something about it. That would have helped me. Then you talk about, I'm in menopause right now, so that is another thing. This happens. Even gynecologists are talking about it already. I'm so glad when we find some that are talking about women's health and quality of life in affecting that area. So education is a very big thing for us. We're always looking for people who have a lot more influence to talk about the subject and let women know that there is a solution. Let them know how important it is to get that, because you're by not fixing that, you're taking away something from your life.
Since I'm building this brand, I'm disrupting with what I'm saying with my view of wellness. How do you make sure that your customers are actively participating and can go on that journey with you?
Well, so as I mentioned, for the beginning, this is where we had to be so connected to our why as founders in our brand. Why am I doing this? Why am I trying to disrupt? What's the need that I'm serving? So it has to come before we take that step in doing the R&D or putting money into something. Really sitting back, and this is where intuition, I think, is such a powerful, important, practical skill to develop, not just spiritually, but in our everyday lives. Why am I doing this? You don't want to mess with the trust, right? So the trust comes, I can trust this brand, they have my back, I can trust the ingredients, I can trust what they're doing. So for me at Solluna, it's always been this really natural listening and then moving with our community. So for instance, now this year, because we've heard so much feedback, we are launching resources in the fertility, pregnancy, postpartum space, body care, courses, because I'm a mom now. And so a lot of my audience and customers have come with me. And so there's a reason we're doing it, and I see a gap in the information, and people are really confused. So that's why we're disrupting and innovating there. So you really need to back up the why. Otherwise your customers don't want to come, right? It's just so flimsy and we're trying. But I think the word here is trying. Trying to be something, I'm trying to be this identity, this construct, versus being it, living it, just creating it, because that's what's called for, right? It's going with that real inner voice, and I think if we keep that as we expand our businesses, we don't get off track, and our customers continue to deepen their trust, and they come with us on the journey.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with what you're saying in terms of trust and your why, because I think that when we experience things, and I think anything that I've ever really been passionate about, it generally stems from something that I've experienced. And so if I'm experiencing it, other women are experiencing it. And we've had groups, just focus groups of talking with women, and this is not something unique to me. When I was 47 years old, I started experiencing a difference in the quality of my intimate life. I went to my gynecologist. I said to her, this is what I'm experiencing. In retrospect, it was very disappointing that she didn't ask those questions, because if I wasn't bold enough to say to her, listen, this is what I'm saying, how would I know that there could be an issue? You think it's normal. So I raised that question to her. The option she was giving me, I wasn't satisfied with. And we already had something that was working for the face, that was very effective in regenerating that skin and that tissue. So I thought, well, maybe it will work here. And so of course we did our safety tests and our effectiveness. We did a clinical study, and double blind, and we were happy to see that we were helping all the women to increase their quality of life. We saw it in biopsy. So in terms of how do we bring our clients along, I think it's going to be even more important to continue to share my story and to help, and then for other women to share their stories. But going back to me, once we did this, and I used the CO2 lift, it brought my husband and I back to where I needed it to be. You know what I'm saying? Because that is very important in a relationship. And it's important to us too, as women. We need to have that on our own. It's not about just a spouse. So I think that for me, it's a matter of continuing to tell other women, share my story with other women, have the thousands of women who are using our book share their stories, and make women see it's not a hush thing. We don't have to be secretive about it. This is something that's very natural. It's like we talk about other parts of our body, and I think the women empowerment movement, I think we're seeing it. I think we're seeing women speaking out, wanting the quality of life, and that is only going to help for us to continue to tell our story and to get people to recognize that there are options.
Well, and we deserve that quality of life, it can't be a secret. And I think it's interesting because we've both talked about the quality of life, we've talked about the wellness piece, we've talked about listening to customers, but disruption is also about the data. So when we think about data and we think about technology, what's the role of data in all of this in terms of how you're thinking about advancing your companies forward, how you're also thinking about the products and the new products that you're rolling out? How do you approach that?
I can tell you that the statistics show that it has been a 50% increase in requests for surgeries from women to help with vaginal correction within the last really 5 years. So I think that when you look at say toxins for the face, let's say Botox for toxin. Look how many years people didn't even tell anyone that they were doing Botox. It was a big secret, or they were doing anything for their face. now people are sharing it. Oh, I just had Botox. You know, I just had, exactly. So I feel like that trend is changing. So we look at the statistics, we see first of all, there's a need. 80% of women at one point in their lives will experience vaginal discomfort or painful sex. So we know that. What are the options? What are the solutions out there? Well, they can go and get laser or some type of energy-based device at a doctor's office, which costs a lot more money, painful downtime. And it's great if you can do it. But now, what about the others who can't afford it? Well, guess what? So we're using those statistics to see that, yes, we are doing something right. We're helping women. And in Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we see that women, they're not even talking about what they're going through after chemo. Here it is now, this their quality of life. So we see that the demand is there, and now it's a matter of we can fill it. And now we just have to help women to see that, yes, there's something here that's going to address that.
Well, and especially when you think about those stats. When you hear the data and the stats, along with what am I feeling and what's my personal experience, you can't deny that you have to address it. And so I think, Kimberly, for you, because we only talked about one product, and your new products, you have a whole suite of lifestyle products. So did that come through the lens of data? Was it more your personal experience that you talk about? And how do you use data to move the brand forward?
Yes, I love this question. There's so much data out there, right? And there's this term, decision paralysis, maybe you're familiar with, where people today have no idea what to eat for dinner. There's so much data, right? It's the numbers of the paleo, keto, plant-based paleo, this. There comes a point where we realize it's not more information that we need. It's us being the ones to sift through, distill, through the lens of being connected to that inner voice, that inner intuition, right? Because there's so much data. Of course, we need to stay on top of trends. We need to know what's going on in our industry. But at the same time, let me pause here and say my last book had a chapter on intuition. There's research. All these Nobel Prize winners talked about there was a moment they could do their research in this way or this way, and there was no data pushing them. It was just a hunch they had. It was something inside of them. So it's really important to realize that as founders, as unique beings, we all have this inner voice. We all have this wisdom. So yes, data. Yes, give me the numbers. But at the same time, do not discount the inner voice. So the way we've created all these products, like I said, it's listening, it's feeling, it's putting myself in their shoes. I know what it's like to be bloated. I was bloated for many years. Here's a resource, here's a supplement, but here's a course, here's more information. So it's always been expanding in this very organic way. Data, yes, but data in qualitative. Data in what are they saying? What are the questions on the podcast? What are all these DMs? Thousands of DMs that no one can answer that comes out on Instagram. What's going on? You can feel this energy, which is non-linear. And I think sometimes when we get so linear, we get confused. There's a lot of fear that goes on. We may be doing what other people are doing because we're scared of missing out. Or we're supposed to be doing this because our competitors doing it. But we just need to really stay clear. And part of that goes back to that interconnection, self-work, making sure we're giving ourselves the space for silence and stillness, meditation, journaling after meditating, which by the way is where I tend to get my best ideas, after we're in stillness. So just making sure we have the space to listen. Otherwise the numbers get really confusing. They're not grounded in anything.
Right, and it is. It's like we can have data, but then we also have to make decisions based on human beings, based upon our experiences, based upon the DMs that we're getting with people telling us that sometimes may not always add up. And I also like this notion of the meditation, the journaling, finding what we need. We were on a panel yesterday and we all took a deep breath because one of the founders was just like, it's so much that sometimes taking a deep breath does more for me than anything else I could do. And it's a better feeling than a new cell, than a new team member, than profitability. And so we keep talking about interconnectivity, but I think that it's so crucial. And as we think through kind of the future, right? Because we're gonna have to disrupt to stay competitive. We're gonna have to create new products. We're gonna have to have difficult conversations. What does the future look like for each of your brands? What are you excited about? What are you leaning into? to, what does disruption come when you think in the next several years?
For me right now, it's the more immediate future is continuing to educate, and because it's carboxy therapy in itself is something that people don't understand, but also, as I said, the topics, the intimate wellness. So definitely more education is involved. I had read an article in February in a Laura magazine, and they were talking about how more brands are looking to infuse CO2 gas into them because the absorption rate would improve that. And so, when we develop products and we have other products, everything is infused with CO2 gas. But certainly for us, I'd say the next 3 to 5 years, it's still a big part of how do we get this information to the masses, to improve, for them to understand what's available, and then therefore take advantage of it.
What was the second?
Wait, what was the question?
What's the future? You have your 7th, 8th, 9th book coming out. Okay,
God, future. So, I was like, wow, Lana sounds really good. Oh yeah, I was supposed to answer this. The future, I think, is staying so connected. Again, our cornerstones are food, body, emotional well-being, and spiritual growth. So, in the emotional well-being category, we created something called the online Solluna Circle, which is essentially this online program where people can connect. We have a Zoom every month, and we're talking about things like getting past control, and there's mantras and there's meditations. We created that because people were feeling so isolated because of the pandemic, right? So it's like we keep innovating based on things that are out of our control, what's going on. This whole pregnancy chapter about to enter is new. Greens powder, because I've always been a smoothie teacher, but not everybody has time to make stuff every day. So it keeps innovating, it keeps getting more cross-category, it gets more fun, and I don't know, I just think it's like the more we step into this river of intuition and flow and not trying so much, things keep evolving.
That's exciting. I just want to thank you all because I love the different perspective of the data, the science, the technology, with the flow, with the pivot, with intuition. I think that it truly is the balance of both to be good founders, to be good leaders, to have our families, and to create